What did you do back in the end of the video? Today's video, man, we're going over some of the best classes you can get right now in MW3. This is probably going to be the last class setup video I do for this game. So this is kind of like the big hoorah of class setups. And I think these class setups will be good for pretty much the rest of this life cycle, which is going to be less now than a month, since we're towards the end of September, and then we just have October, and at the end of October we have BO6. And so, normally I would only do a couple guns, but today, obviously, since it's the last one, we're going to be doing all of the guns that I think are metas or just good in general. Because if you guys know me, you guys know I'm not a huge meta guy. I think every gun's a meta. There's broken guns, but I think every gun's a meta if you have it built correctly, which I do. So, without further ado, let's hop into it. First one right off the bat is going to be the dtir. I don't know how they pronounce it in this game, but it's basically the modernized version of the bar. This is a real gun. It's a little thicker, a little shorter, I think, than it is in real life, but it is what they're going for. They're going for the real life 30-06 bar. That is the modernized version. So as you guys can see in the screen, we're running the X10 long barrel, the Camaro Ryan 03 grip, with the slate reflector for the optic, the Bruin Minuteman stock, and the 40-round magazine. Now, one thing about this build that you may notice as you're using it is it's not the fastest possible build for this thing. There is a quicker build that I sometimes mess around with, but it's not my personal favorite. This one's better for longer and medium ranges. You're going to find yourself getting really good 1 to 2 shot, even 3 shot kills at those medium to longer distance firefights. Now, up close, this thing does kind of suffer, and so you might want to run a pistol or something, or a knife to get those up close kills. But for the most part, if you're staying at a longer range, stay more defensive, especially if you're on surf or something, stay more defensive, you should just annihilate the competition with this build. So, that's number one. Let's move on to the next build, which is going to be the ACR build that I'm running. This is the ACR build that I've been running to get the Constellation's end camo on. Now, the thing with this build is it doesn't, on paper, for a lot of, like, if you look at a lot of the ranked builds, on paper this doesn't seem like it would be that great, because there's no heavy suppressor that's doing a lot of damage, there's no grip, there's no heavy stock or heavy underbarrel. But the difference is this one's more for that medium range, even shorter range, and it has a little bit more recoil control and a little more speed than it does necessary damage output. The biggest damage output, obviously, is the barrel. I think it's the highest damage barrel. But right now we're running the 16.5-inch Cyclone barrel, the MK3 reflector, the A90 Venom stock, the skeleton vertical underbarrel, and then we're running the 40-rounder mag. Now, this build, like I said, this has been my main build. So if we go here, my stats here real quick, or my builds, you can see here that I have a few different MW build, ACR builds. I have an 2009 MW ACR, if I can speak English today, build. This is predominantly themed around the original build that I would have ran back in the day. So it has suppressor. Obviously, nowadays we have more attachments than we did back then, so I kind of try to stay as close to the original as possible. And you can see it's pretty damn close. The only thing I didn't have is I don't have that the original stock. Obviously, I have more of a CQB stock, but it's pretty similar. And there was another build. This is kind of a test build. This is what I usually test different aftermarket parts on. And so, depending on the aftermarket part, I'll hop in. I need a base gun, like a equilibrium gun that I can test things on. And the ACR is just really one of those guns that is really good for just an equilibrium gun that you can test a lot of things on. So that's another one that I've been running on. But this build has been my predominant build, my main build for a while now. It just feels really good to use overall, and it's super solid. But yeah, that's the ACR. Let's move on to the next build, which is right here. Build that I've been running. This is one of those builds where I personally think it's one of the best builds, but some people could argue that there's better builds out there for the Beretta. And while most of my classes, in my personal opinion, are the best classes you can probably get for most of these guns, because I base it off of stats, I don't base it off of what feels good. I'm basing it predominantly on maximizing the damage, maximizing that recoil control, maximizing the mobility, etc. and really maximizing what I can do with those builds. That's kind of why it takes me for a while to get these builds set up, and why I take weeks and weeks and weeks to play test these builds to find the absolute pinnacle builds. But this build isn't necessarily pinnacle, but I think what helps this Beretta build is it's very good for rapid switching, right? So we go to firing range here. If we go to the ACR here and we're shooting, bam, 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 but we need to switch to our secondary, it's a very quick ADS switch, right? It's very quick compared to a lot of the Beretta builds you'll see out there on the market. This is a very quick build. Now, obviously, you don't really need the suppressor, and honestly, some people would probably rather run the single shot Beretta conversion kit. But I don't really like the conversion kits for the Berettas. I think it hurts the Beretta more than it benefits them. Obviously, if you are a guy who likes semi-auto pistols, you may want that. But I have another semi-auto pistol build in this video that I think you'll much prefer over this specific one. But overall, pretty good. So what we're running on this build is the MK2 Renetti long barrel, the FT Steelfire muzzle, which is like a suppressor. Now, majority of suppressors in this video you'll see on these guns are Sonics, so keep that in mind. Then we have the 9mm high grain rounds. This is, again, something I don't really run because the ammunition types in general are just useless. I'm gonna be honest. They're usually useless. Usually the damage outputs they help are really not all that great. And usually the ones that feel like they have a lot of effect obviously have a lot of negatives as well. So rarely ever use the high grain rounds or any other type of ammo type, but this specific build really does need them. We have a 30 rounder, and then we have the Bruin Express trigger. Now, triggers, be wary of using triggers if you're decide to use a different trigger, because they did nerf one of the best triggers in the game a couple seasons ago. I think it was like 2 seasons ago when they nerfed the Core 45, so keep that in mind. Let's move on to the next gun. Next gun we're going to do is the STG. The STG that I'm running right now is so good. This is the current build that I'm running while I'm running for while I'm guarding the Constellation's End camo. So this is the current build that I'm running with it. It's the Slate Reflector, the A70 Venom stock, the 40 rounder, the Camaro Ryan 03 underbarrel, and the Heinrichter C70 barrel. I recommend this build for those guys who like the STG's medium engagements. It's much better for those medium engagement distances than, say, other builds. This build does suffer up close. It's not the best up close build. Obviously, if you're building an up close STG build, you really want to get a no stock or a small stock, smaller barrel STG is a lot quicker, maybe with a suppressor or something. But I think with this STG is a really good just medium build. That it covers majority of your bases when most firefights you're going to get into. But yeah, on to the next one. Here we go. So the next one we're going to do here, let's do the MTZ. We'll do the MTZ build. Now this is a build that I discovered when I was doing Mercury for the MTZ. And I've kind of just fell in love with this build with the MTZ. It's the MTZ Drifter Heavy Barrel, the VT7 Spear Fire Suppressor, the SL Skeletal Vertical Underbarrel, the Jack Glassless Optic, and then the MTZ Life Strike stock. This is one of those builds that is just so good for no reason. Like, it shouldn't be as good as it is. The only thing I would recommend, if you're someone who doesn't like the glassless optic, I would recommend running the Slate Reflector, the thing we ran on the dtir. I personally not a fan of the glassless optic in this specific game. Obviously, AW's glassless red dot sight was much better, but on this specific build, I really do like this optic, and it fits. And you're going to see some of these builds as we go out through the video. Some of these builds have random optics that I normally wouldn't run, but some builds with certain optics they just work, right? They just mesh really well, and I feel like this is one of those type of situations. So that's the MTZ build. On to the next one. Our next one on the list is going to be the BAL 27 build that I have. Again, really one of those builds that is just so good, and it just fits so well. This build is very similar to what I would have went for in Advanced Warfare's BAL, which is a better barrel. I think in Advanced Warfare they had long barrels, So I put a long barrel in Advanced Warfare. We would have the extended magazine. We would have had a better stock, and I think I probably would have ran some type of suppressor over a stock, depending on the situation. Obviously, this build in this game is a little different. So in this game, you don't have the suppressor. But obviously, if you want to build suppressor, just put the Sonic suppressor on, and you'd be all right. Specifically for this build, though, we're running the Crown H3 barrel, the DR6 hand stop, 60 round mag, the hammer grip, and the Ardent tack stock. So very simple build, not crazy. The only thing I will say is if you don't want to run the DR6 hand stop, you can run the this grip right here, the Camaro Rhino 03, the one we've been using for most of these builds. This has become my new favorite grip. I think I just said stock, but I meant grip. Because this is probably the best overall grip for recoil. There's obviously this build, this grip right here, the skeletal grip. This is another really, really good one where it gives you some recoil control and it gives you a little bit of ADS speed. But if you're going specifically for movement, go for that DR hand stop, because that DR hand stop is by far the best in the game for mobility. It just has the most beneficial stat-wise. So that's the Battle 27 class setup. For the Vector, this is a class I'm still kind of messing with, but I'm going to put it in here because I'm pretty comfortable with this build. I think I might change maybe one thing, if that. But right now for the Vector, we're running the Sonic Suppressor, the R6 hand stop, the 45 rounder, the Fennec striped rear grip, and the stock, which is the F-Tac X Command. That's the only thing I might change. I might switch this stock out for something else, depending on how this build runs. I haven't really used this in a while. If I'm going to switch it, it'll probably be the Agile Assault 7 stock, so you can play with both these stocks and kind of get a vibe for them and see what one you prefer. But again, this is one of those guns where you really want to get up close in the enemy's faces. That's where the Vector really performs the best. If you're trying to shoot people far ranges, obviously it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but you can do it. But it's not what the gun's designed for. It's up close, rapid fire, get as many bullets hit on the target as possible, and then, get out of there. So this is one of those guns I haven't been using in a while. It's one of my favorite guns from Modern Warfare 2, but I haven't really used it on this game all that much. And then I saw someone using it this morning, and it got me in the kick to want to use it. So I highly recommend trying the Vector. It's still very, very good in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. And we have a couple Modern Warfare 2 guns on this video, so definitely keep that in mind. Our next build is going to be for the G36, or the Hogger 556, for those who want to know the in-game name. So the G36 is another one of those guns where it's always hit or miss with me. Like, there's certain seasons where this thing has outshined everything else, and then there's other seasons where this thing is completely fucking useless. And I'm feeling this season's kind of mid, where it's not overpowered, but it's not underpowered either. It's kind of just in the middle. And I think that's what makes it such a good gun, because it's such an underrated gun, right? Not a lot of people running out the G36 in this game. So if you're someone who likes the G36, who's used to play COD 4 and all that, you'll truly enjoy this build. The Cryo 6 match is the barrel we're running. We're running the DR6 hand stop, underbarrel, the slight reflector optic, and the Morn 20 grip with a 40 rounder. Now, there is one other build that you can do with this gun, and that is running the burst for conversion kit. Now, the burst conversion kit has its own moments, but I'm not necessarily a fan of it overall. But if you want to run that, you obviously just match what attachments we have here with the conversion kit and go from there. So it's pretty much the same class setup, relatively speaking. But overall, this is a solid build if you're looking for just another build to run. And I think it just works really, really well. Next up, we have the MP5. We just got to find it here for a second. There it is. Now, the MP5 is one of those guns that has always been special to me when it comes to just the feel of the weapon is always really, really good. And I feel like although its iron sights aren't the same as the OG MP5s, I definitely think this is the best performing MP5 we've had in years. I think Modern Warfare 2 did a fantastic job with the MP5. I think Modern Warfare 2 did a fantastic job with all their guns. I think all their guns are really, really good feeling. But in this game specifically, it's nice to have that fast SMG that's an MP5, because all the SMGs in this game are kind of with the Modern Warfare 3 versions. So having that MP5 from Modern Warfare 2 to be able to use on multiplayer is extremely nice, especially if you're someone who wants to run around and do a lot of damage really fast. The MP5 is going to do that for you. We're running the X10 RR40 muzzle, the FTAC M-Sub-12 barrel, the DR6 hand stop, the 40 rounder, and the Lockman TCG-10 rear grip. So fairly basic class, nothing crazy. If you want to switch it up, if you're feeling a little saucy, you can take the suppressor off and run a foldable stock or an optic if you're really feeling funky. But I think the MP5 performs best iron sights in my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily needs an optic, especially as an SMG. So you're going to be getting up close and personal with people, so you're not going to really need to aim down sights all that much. This thing's really good for hip fire as well. Our next gun is going to be, we're going to do the Kar 98. That is not the Kar 98, that's the Kar 98. So this is the Kar 98 class that I've been running recently. I'm running this on stream last night and the night before. By the way, check out my Twitch down below. I'll have a Linktree link, and you guys click on that link and go to my Twitch. I'm hoping to live stream more often over there. But this is the Kar 98 class that I've been running recently. And right off the bat, let's just be honest with each other, right? If you're running the Kar 98, you're toxic. Okay, it is what it is. So if you want to run iron sights on the Kar 98, I say do it. Front dead red dots, do it, because you're already using a Kar 98, which means you're already being toxic. So there's really no need to worry about like, oh, you got iron sights in your Kar 98. Just don't worry about it. It's a toxic gun in general. It's too easy to use. let's just agree for that, right? So what we're running on here is running the no stock. We're running a Bryson Carbon S barrel. We're running the X10 binary suppressor, and we're in the DR6 hand stop. Now this can have a 5th attachment, but as you see, the sling and laser are both blocked out because of that no stock. And the ammunition types really aren't all that useful. Plus you lose your tracers, depth effects, etc. And optics, obviously this class is going for the iron sight effect. So, take that with what you want. Obviously you can play around with attachments, but this is what I found to be best for just iron sight quick scoping. So, W there. Next one up on the list, we got the XRK. This is a build that a lot of people have asked me for recently. Quite a few people actually. So I wanted to put this in here because, that way people want to know this build, they can come to this video and find it. So we're running the FSS, there we go, 05 laser, and the no stock XRK Stalker light bolt, and then we're running the XRK Stalker factory rear grip, and then a Core 03 light guard. So I know some people when they build the Stalker, they do like an underbarrel or a barrel, or they do a magazine or a suppressor. I don't like all those attachments. A lot of those attachments don't help your ADS speed. They hinder it, if anything. The attachments I have right here, all of them increase your ADS speed, so you don't really lose any. And then you have that default scope, and that default scope is pretty decent, in my opinion. You don't really need an extra scope or a different scope. So that's my personal opinion, but obviously, if you really wanted to change things around, you could probably find an attachment here that does little to nothing positive, like either the light bolt or something, and put one of these bipods on or something, whatever. But it is what it is, right? I think this is a pretty solid build, and I find myself getting more compliments about this build than anything else. So I like to think it's a pretty decent build. Up next, we'll do the battle rifles, and we're gonna do the TAC-V. Now, this is one of those guns where I haven't really used it all that much recently, but this is a build that I made relatively quickly in this game because the TAC-V was very good in Modern Warfare 2. It was very strong. It was like the TAC or the SCAR, as it's called in real life. But it was a little heavier, hit a little heavier, so you're able to get a lot more rapid kills, especially on hardcore. But this is the build we're running. We're running the 18-inch precision 6-bar barrel, the Jack BFB, which is actually wrong. So, everyone laugh at me in the comments, boys. It's actually going to be the DR6 hand stop, alright? Your boy is dumb. It'll be DR6 hand stop, and then the 50-round drum, and the FSS combat grip, and then the optic will be the MK3 reflector. This is a pretty solid build overall. Recoil is going to be a slight problem, but if you're having issues with recoil and you just can't get the recoil down, I would swap out the optic for a stock that helps with recoil. Just saying. Usually these scars, TACV, the TAC 56, they're going to have better iron sights, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. Future reference, I don't know, I think most builds in this game are saved, updated. I must have missed this one, but the Jack BFB, if you see this in any future builds of mine, take the Jack BFB off. They nerfed it to the ground. It is no longer worth your using. They've also, like, they reduced how much recoil it controls, and they've also increased how much ADS speed you lose. I think you lose like 30 or 40% of your ADS speed, which is awful. So don't run that. Take that off. If I hope and I don't have any other classes that are glitched like that, or I forgot about. So going forward, there shouldn't be any more. But if you see them, just ignore those, because they're completely incorrect. Next up is the M16. Now the M16 that I fell in love with, the build that I fell in love with, is this build right here. Sonic Suppressor, the Paracord Grip, 45 rounder, the conversion kit, the full auto conversion kit, the turret span 9 stock. This build is delicious, dude. This might be single-handedly the best gun in the game, 110%. Like I would put money on it. This might be the best build, the best gun in the entire game right now. This thing is an absolute fucking beast, and it just performs so well. Now there's a couple different builds that you could go with this thing. You could put an optic on it or something. I think the M16 iron sights are actually really, really good in this game compared to a lot of other video games out there that have M16s. I'm looking at you, Daisy, with your terrible ass iron sights. You can't see shit. But this game's iron sights are way better for the M16. It's definitely sustainable, and you can find yourself being pretty fucking accurate with this thing, iron sights. So recommend this M16 all the fucking way. Next up, we're going to do the M4, because I feel like the M4 is a must-have on any type of class edit video for this game. So this is the M4 build I'm running currently. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. This is a part of this build was actually discovered in a random M4 lobby, like a random multiplayer lobby. Some random guy was using M4. And he had the suppressor and the barrel that we're looking at combo, and I thought that was a pretty interesting combo. So I did a little testing, and I found this is actually a really good combination of attachments when you put them together. And yeah, so this is the build we're running with the MPK3 for reflector optic, the turret span 9 stock, 45 rounder, VT7 Spitfire or Spearfire suppressor, and the 419mm extended, I think it's extended barrel. So pretty cool. Obviously, if you're really trying to maximize your damage output, or not necessarily your damage output, but your bullet velocity, you're going to run the high tower 20-inch barrel. But this does have more negatives than the one I'm using currently, so it does kind of help the M4 a lot that way. So that's pretty cool. Next up on the list, I think I have one already here. Yes, here. Next one up on the list is X12. This is going to be the semi-auto pistol I mentioned earlier. For my semi-auto guys out there, this is the last pistol in the game, in my personal opinion, that can really spam fire. Now, there is a couple other options if you're looking to spam fire. The 99mm Damon is still really, really good for spam firing, as well as the P890 is still pretty decent. But when it comes to like the Core 45, which was before the best pistol in the game, hands down, sadly is no longer very good. But here's the class I'm running with the X12, or the Glock as I've named it in game, because it's kind of what this gun was going for. We have the Sonic Suppressor, the high velocity ammo types. We have the 33 round magazine, and we have the XRK lightning fire, trigger action, and the F-Tac Les grip. So this build will be very good for those guys who are very comfortable with pistols. If you're not comfortable with this pistol, I do recommend maybe swapping the suppressor out for an optic, because it's actually pretty decent without the suppressor with an optic. So just up to you to decide whether or not that's something you're interested in. Up next, our next big class is going to be the HRM. Now, the HRM is one of those guns that I really stopped using for a while, but in the recent era with the Season 6, I found that it's really been quite good. They buffed it, I think, this season as well. So this is the build we're running currently with it. The folding stock. We have the PCS 90 assault grip, 50 round drum, princeps, long barrel, and then the DR6 hand stop. This thing is beastly. Probably one of the best, if not the best SMG in the game currently. This thing is an absolute beast. I was using this on Search and Destroy earlier. I dropped like a 20 kill game with it. This thing is an absolute beast, and it's so good. So I highly recommend it. And it's nice to see the HRM come back. You know, I feel like it's been a while since I've had a really good game with the HRM. I feel like, so I'm very glad to see this thing's back. Obviously, the next gun, y'all knew was coming. You can't escape from it, and that is a static HV. You can't get away from this thing, man. It's everywhere. So the static, we're obviously running the MK3 reflector, the Salvo 580 heavy stock, the Garrote 8 long barrel, Sonic suppressor, X10 Phantom 5 hand grip, or the underbarrel. So again, nothing you can really do to get away from this thing. This thing's a little more recoil based, as this will be a recoil heavier class, but I wanted it to be a little bit quicker up close, a little bit faster up close when it came to fire rate. So be mindful of that. You can make this thing a little more recoil controllable, but I think you lose a lot of that damage output, that velocity, which is not very Sigma if you're using a Sigma weapon. Next up, we have arguably one of the SMGs that I love, probably the longest in this game specifically, but unfortunately it is not nearly as good as it used to be, and that is the Striker 9, or the UMP 9 millimeter. We're running the Lockman Recon stock, the 50 round drum, 9mm high velocity, DR6 hand stop, and the Striker Recon barrel. Beautiful build. You're going to enjoy this build a lot, in my personal opinion. I found this build to be most enjoyable, especially, unironically, this thing's really good in Warzone. For being not a very heavy damage-based build, this thing is very, very strong in Warzone. It does perform extremely well. This is what I was running for a while in Warzone before I started running the static. So, highly recommend it. Next up, we have... let's do the Bass P. Why not? Bass P is another really good one. Obviously, the Bass P has been, I would say, a dominant AR or battle rifle in this game for quite a while. I think it was like Season 4 or 5 that it got nerfed. And ever since then, it's kind of fell off a little bit. But it's still very, very strong, still very, very reliable in firefights. We're using the Bruin Flash V8 light stock, the STT-88 grip, 45 rounder, Bruin Venom long barrel, and the DR6 hand stop. Again, lots of options for this. You could obviously use the lever action if you wanted to, but not personally my favorite. But this is the build that I feel is the most confident build with the Bass P. And there's something about the iron sights that I love, man. They're so good. They're so good. But that is the Bass P. We're getting down here to the final few. If there is more guns that you guys want to see builds with, or the best builds with, I could do a part 2 to this video and do more of the other guns. And maybe I'll do a part 3 or 4 or whatever. I would predominantly this is most of the big guns, but if you guys really want more, I'm willing to make more videos on classes. But next up, I want to do an LMG. So let's do an LMG, boys. Let's do an LMG. Which one do we do? I'm going to go with the G36, or the Holger LMG. Now, you might take notice of something. This does not look like an LMG. This is more of an AR build, and I think that's why this is probably the best LMG build to run, because it's more like an AR, or even I would even say it's more like a battle rifle, because it shoots a little bit heavier. It's not as light. And we have the Holger factory barrel, Echoless 80 muzzle, DR6 hand stop, and the 40 rounder with the quarters classic optic. Now this is the Modern Warfare COD 4 Modern Warfare optic. So again, very unique optic, but I think it really, really works well for this build. And again, just a dope build, dude. It reminds me so much of COD 4 and the way this build is set up, and I just love it so much, dude. So highly recommend this build. Shotguns. Let's do a shotgun while we're here. Let's see. Let's do the Lockwood 680. Let's just do a real simple one. I think it's either one of these two. Boys, I think it's this one. Yeah, because this is the one that's doing gold, so I was doing this for the Ultra Mastery, so this is the correct build. So this build, we're running the Sold Off mod for the stock, the Express Light Bolt, we're running the Bolo Shells, the Lockwood Defender Barrel, and the X10 Full Choke. This one's really there for the damage. This thing is a beast when it hits you. Obviously, that Bolo Shells, you could change that out for something else if you wanted to, like a laser, underbarrel, or guard. But for me specifically, I just think this is the best version, especially for that damage output. Not much to say. The 680 is pretty solid. There's not a whole lot to really go over with this gun. Everyone knows it. Everyone hates it in game when someone pulls this out with the riot shield. But if that's your cup of tea, there it is for you. And over here, we'll do the Tech 9 as well, where the FTAC Siege is known in game. So running the Ratchet BE barrel, the Rebel X HX underbarrel, the 72 round drum, the FTAC Stead rear grip, and the Heist LW stock. Again, this is really good because it's an SMG, it's a pistol, and I built it specifically that way. And it is a dude. This thing is an absolute monster up close. I've actually seen quite a few of these out in the game recently. So very cool that it's getting popular again because the FTAC Siege is one of my more enjoyable guns when it comes to Modern Warfare 2 pistols. Modern Warfare 2 had an odd period of pistols. Like some of the pistols were really good, but I felt like a lot of those pistols fell dry. But the FTAC Siege was a fun and pretty unique secondary. So I think we'll do one more. Let's do. We haven't done a marksman, so we've done a marksman, but we haven't done like an actual marksman. We've done the Kar98, which is just a sniper, in my opinion. But you know, it is what it is. Now, this is one that I used quite a bit not too long ago when I was doing the. I think I did the Ultra Mastery grind on this. I think it was. No, it must have been the one trick grind. But highly recommend this build. This is actually really good for those medium to longer range maps like Derail, Afghan, etc. We're running the Slate Reflector, Optic, the Huntsman series barrel, the 6.8 Wrath high grain, RB Claw PSL grip, and then the full auto conversion. So very, very good. I think the conversion kit it's 20 rounds, so it's not nearly as high as some of the other marksman's conversion kits when they make a full auto, but this thing makes up for damage where it loses for ammo, so very worth it. But there it is, guys. Those are some of the best builds, in my personal opinion. Obviously, every gun has its best build, but I think these are the most dominant guns that you will see on them, that you will be able to use from this video, that you will be able to go positive with. All these builds are transversable for any mode. So these can be used for zombies, more like Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, or the Modern Warfare 2 guns. You might be able to use them in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer depending on the detachments. They're good for Warzone, good for ranked play, depending on the attachments, because some guns have suppressors, which aren't allowed in ranked play. And yeah, they're just overall really, really strong in most modes. If you're playing zombies, if it has like extended mag on the gun, just swap it for the highest mag. That's pretty much the only difference, so you get the extra ammo type, but hopefully it wasn't too long. I hate doing these long videos like this, but I really wanted to just get some of these class setups I've been working out. Again, if you haven't already, check out my community app profile. I usually update those classes once a month. I think I haven't updated this month quite yet, but I'm going to try to update some of those before the end of September. And obviously with BO6 coming around the corner, I'll be busy over there making class setups. And BO6 is going to have some crazy builds. I'm expecting at least 2 builds per gun in Black Ops 6, which right now, currently in the game for Modern Warfare 3, I have like about 1 to maybe 2 builds per gun at the most. So not too many builds. There's also another thing before I end the video. If you guys want, I do have some IRL builds in here, as you guys have probably seen throughout this video. Most guns I have a real life build for. If you guys want to see a mashup of real life builds that I've come up with, let me know. I thought that was something I wanted to do a while ago, but I kind of just forgot about it. But if you guys are interested in that, I'll upload it. Let's see, anything else? No. Videos coming out pretty regularly now, hopefully. Streams more often. I've been enjoying streaming the last 2 days, so should be back on the effort to stream. I'm going to try to pump out as much Modern Warfare 3 content as possible. but the last Modern Warfare 3 video will be around end of October, so around the 23rd, 24th of October will be the last Modern Warfare 3 video for a while. So if you guys want to see anything specific to this game, please let me know down below so I can get that out for you guys before BO6. So with that being said, love you guys, you're one of a kind. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.